You ever find yourself scrolling aimlessly, feeling the hours slip by, and then realize you've accomplished almost nothing? That quiet tug of dissatisfaction, the thought that maybe you could be doing something meaningful, but somehow you aren't, has a way of gnawing at the edges of your day. It doesn't hit all at once. Leisure is seductive. It whispers comfort. Relax, it says. You've worked hard. You deserve this. And you nod, telling yourself it's harmless, even essential. But here's where the truth often hides. Too much leisure, unexamined and habitual, slowly erodes not just productivity, but your potential, your mindset, and eventually your freedom. My name is Anderson. Over the years, I've watched people accumulate resources, opportunities, and even wealth, only to see their lives plateau because the hours of their days weren't designed with intention. Leisure itself isn't the enemy, but when it becomes a default, it quietly limits you. Here's a contrarian insight most people never hear. Most self-help advice glorifies balance, telling you to work hard but relax more, as if the mere act of resting is a neutral good. But leisure without design isn't restful, it's often corrosive. It dulls focus, blunts ambition, and lets time slip away unnoticed. Freedom isn't created by the absence of work, it's created by the thoughtful allocation of time. The turning point is subtle. It starts with something small, an extra hour on social media, a second show on Netflix, a weekend without purpose. It doesn't feel consequential. You're resting, rewarding yourself, enjoying life, right? But these hours, repeated day after day, accumulate, and then suddenly, you look up and realize the months, sometimes years have passed with minimal growth, minimal investment in skill, income, or opportunity. There's an invisible threshold here that most people never recognize. Once leisure becomes habitual rather than intentional, your financial and personal trajectory shifts. Decisions feel heavier. The time you once had to learn, to invest, to build optionality has been quietly siphoned. And because the shift is invisible, it feels inevitable. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, while tomorrow quietly compounds into decades of opportunity lost. Let's quantify this. Imagine someone earns $50,000 a year and spends 15 hours a week on unplanned leisure instead of pursuing growth, learning a skill, side projects, networking. That's roughly 780 hours a year. If even 10% of that time could be invested into something that yields a 10% return, the results over 10 years aren't small, they're transformative. Small hours, repeated, become exponential outcomes. And leisure, unstructured, quietly steals that potential. Psychologically, this creates a trap. People operate in survival mode when they feel time slipping away, yet have no plan for regaining control. Fear of missing out, comparison with peers, and anxiety about the future distort choices. In contrast, someone who allocates leisure intentionally moves into growth mode. Their free time is regenerative rather than degenerative. Decisions are made with clarity, mental bandwidth expands, and opportunities that seemed distant suddenly feel accessible. Simple math reinforces the lesson. Take a modest scenario. If someone reinvests just 5 hours a week from unstructured leisure into a skill or side project, that's 260 hours a year. Multiply that over 10 years, 2,600 hours. Even at a conservative value of $30 an hour in skill development or income growth, that's $78,000 compounded, along with career leverage, negotiation power, and the confidence that comes with expertise. All this from intentionally choosing how to spend free time. The identity shift that comes with this awareness is profound. Discipline isn't just about work, it's about intentionality. Delayed gratification isn't a deprivation, it's the recognition that time is the ultimate currency. Someone who understands this sees leisure as a tool, not a default. Their control over money and life expands, not because they're obsessed with wealth, but because they respect the multiplier effect of intentional action. Opportunities versus emergencies look different at this level. A person trapped by habitual leisure reacts to unexpected expenses, career setbacks, and life events with stress and urgency. A person who has designed their time, however, treats the same events as optional, navigable, and often as leverage points for growth. Mental bandwidth, the ability to process, plan, and act, returns when leisure is intentional rather than default. Big decisions, not coffee-level choices, dominate at this stage. Housing, career trajectories, investing strategies, and transportation choices become tools of freedom rather than obligations. The same hours that were once lost to passive consumption are now spent building leverage, optionality, and resilience. Every hour has a compounding effect, whether it's building skill, network, or financial literacy. Consider the concept of walking away money in this context. Someone who has intentionally invested time in growth can negotiate jobs, walk away from toxic opportunities, or pivot careers with confidence. They have posture, the physical and psychological composure that comes from control over resources and options. Those who allow leisure to default into their lives often lack this leverage. They bend under obligation, compromise in negotiation, and make reactive choices. There's also the cautionary lesson of lifestyle inflation. Unstructured leisure tends to reinforce habits that increase expenses. More entertainment subscriptions, frequent dining out, larger living spaces justified by free time, and social pressures. These incremental costs, when compounded over years, quietly erode freedom. Intentionality prevents these traps. Every hour spent and every dollar spent are evaluated for trade-offs, not impulse gratification. Opportunity cost reframing is essential. Every hour of unstructured leisure is an hour not invested in skill, wealth, or optionality. Every dollar spent on fleeting comfort is a dollar that could have bought freedom decades later. Making this visible, non-judgmentally, changes decisions. What feels like a harmless choice today has compounding consequences tomorrow. Here's the metaphor. Unstructured leisure is like a slow leak in a boat. At first, it seems negligible, barely noticed, barely consequential. But over time, the water accumulates. Momentum builds against you. Eventually, the small, quiet drain threatens your ability to navigate life with freedom. Intentional leisure, in contrast, is like a controlled flow of water, refreshing, regenerative, and contained. The quiet power of this realization compounds in ways most people underestimate. Day-to-day choices ripple outward. Coffee money pales in comparison to decisions about hours, mental energy, and focus. A single hour redirected each day isn't dramatic, but over years, it transforms careers, finances, and psychological resilience. The shift is subtle but transformative. Survival mode shrinks, growth mode expands, fear diminishes, confidence returns, and options multiply. Life-level decisions replace coffee-level ones. Emergencies are optional, not mandates. Career and financial power increase because the person has cultivated leverage over time, energy, and focus. Warning against self-sabotage is essential. Don't treat leisure as a reward or an entitlement. Frame it as a tool, a seed for regeneration, for creativity, for reflection, not as a default escape. Treat time as the foundation upon which freedom, wealth, and opportunity grow. Mismanagement isn't dramatic at first, it's insidious, quietly shaping decades of life into narrower corridors of choice. The conclusion is quiet but powerful. Your future self will thank you not for the hours spent watching screens or avoiding responsibility, but for the hours deliberately allocated toward growth, skill, and optionality. Design your days, allocate leisure intentionally. Recognize the compounding effect of every choice. When understood, the shift feels inevitable. Awareness changes behavior. Every hour saved, every minute redirected, every small choice compounds into life-level leverage. Optionality returns. Mental clarity expands. And in the end, the life that seems out of reach freedom, financial resilience, and psychological autonomy is not a dream. It's the natural result of intentional action, repeated consistently over time. Leisure is not the enemy. Mismanaged leisure is. Once you see the difference, your days, weeks, and years begin to align, not with default comfort, but with the intentional architecture of your life. You create momentum, not just moments. You build gravity, not just temporary ease, and your future self, grateful, free, and empowered, becomes the inevitable result. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.